Oh, the George Jones story. Well, there's many. The most famous one is that Buddy was on stage with George Jones in Texas somewhere, and he suddenly became very unhappy with the way things were going. He felt like somebody was pulling a practical joke on him. He felt like somebody greased his bar so that he would purposefully drop his bar and be made to look bad. There was some just bad vibes going on with the other band members. So Buddy just quit. He literally got up, took his steel off the stage in the middle of a concert, and just split. He went down to a bar down at the corner and started drinking. And then eventually the road manager came and found him afterwards and said, "Would you mind please packing up my steel and throwing it on the bus and taking it to Nashville? I'll make my way back." But he quit George Jones. Months go by. This is somewhere around 61, 62. Several months go by. Buddy is now on the road with Ray Price and playing with the Cherokee Cowboys, and had heard that George and the band were over at a Ramada Inn over on the far side of town. And I actually pulled a quote about this out of some of Buddy's emails. Buddy and somebody else from Ray Price's band walked into the room where George Jones was with some of the band members, and George had been drinking and was intoxicated, and he looked up at Buddy and said, "You're fired." And so as Buddy had written to me in an email, he said, he was talking about his autobiography notes that he had given me. He said, "They should have the Jones period along with his firing me at the Ramada Inn when I didn't work for him." Another taste of Buddy's sense of humor. So, yeah, George somehow didn't put together. He just saw Buddy. His temper just flared, and he just said, "You're fired." But, of course, Buddy was working with Ray Price at the time. So,
what do we know about Buddy's earlier involvement with George Jones?
That's actually interesting. We don't know that much. I make a big deal about that in this particular chapter, that the Jones period is the one that's the hardest for historians to even get a grasp on, because it's the kind of thing where Buddy drifted in and out of George's band whenever he needed to work. Whenever his billfold dictated that he needed to go on the road to make some money. If Ray Price was off for 6 months, people are going to call Buddy Emmons to go on tour, right? So I think this is what happened. Ray would be off for a while. Also, there was that period when Ray got into more of a string kind of a good times kind of a period, more countrypolitan and less country, and so that Buddy wasn't so pleased about that, although they remained close friends to the very end. And they worked together many days after Buddy left the Cherokee Cowboys. I think that the George Jones period, unfortunately, is just one of those where there just aren't a lot of references. Well, what's really cool is that this box set came out of that period between 57 and 61 or so. I'd have to get the exact name for you, but the Bear family put out this box set. Historians, even at the Country Music Hall of Fame, were like so eager for this to come out, because the Bear family is known for just doing fantastic research. And some of the things that we learned, I feel this feels really pretentious. Some of the things that I and some of my friends at the Hall of Fame learned was that we didn't really know for sure that Buddy Emmons had played on Color of the Blues, the original version of Color of the Blues by George Jones, which is one of my favorite tracks, but that's Buddy on that song. And here it is. This box comes with this gigantic book with every session annotated with the exact date, who's playing on it, where it was recorded. It's just like this gold mine, So a lot of my chapter about George Jones hangs upon the fact that this album came out about 2017 or so. It's a really good record. It's pretty intense to hear. When Buddy's playing with George, it's often like a snapshot of a live gig. If you listen to Nothing Can Stop My Lovin' You, some of these tracks, they just sound like they were recorded in a honky tonk. That's what's exciting about them, is We were probably done over here at the Quonset Hut across the street where we are now. We're at Sound Stage Studios here in Ronnie Millsap's studio, and before that, Roy Orbison owned this studio. This is a really cool room. I'm sure Buddy did a ton of sessions in here, no question. And across the street is the Quonset Hut. I'm pretty certain that's where these sessions took place.
I interviewed Lou Bradley over there, and he talked about recording George Jones.
Wow.
He mentioned a Hank Williams album, Hank Williams tunes that he recorded in 2 hours, the entire album live on the floor, and just the way things were done.
You know what? I'll have a confession to make. This is just my little thing, but whenever I come down to Music Row, especially if I'm coming to Soundstage where I work often now, I intentionally drive down the alleyway behind the Quonset Hut at 10 miles an hour, and I imagine Patsy Cline walking across the alleyway to go sing. I imagine Loretta Lynn. I imagine George Jones. I imagine Ray Price coming across to go do Crazy Arms, which was done in the Quonset Hut in '56. Marty Robbins, on and on. All of these artists, and not only that, but the players, all the A-Team, all the players, and including Buddy. You know, Buddy probably was not a member of the A-Team so much, didn't work as much as Pete Drake and others, but Buddy did a ton of sessions in there, and I know his first session with Ray Price was done in there, and it's just I just get, to me, that's ground zero for Nashville, not Lower Broadway or what else. To me, the ground zero is that Bradley recording studio. It has a plaque on the corner if you go out around the front, because it was built in '55 and it was the first major studio in town. And so many tracks came out of that place, and it's still there. Thank goodness. They've managed to build all around it, but you can still, from the back, you can still see the curve of the Quonset Hut back there. So that, to me, that I get the chills when I go down that alleyway. I did it this morning. Coming over here, it's like, oh, this is so cool.
That's the way I drove in today.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Oh, I get that, man. It's just a really special place. But sorry, I don't mean to be vague about George Jones, but it's simply because we don't really know. There's just it's sketchy. It's more like a weekend kind of a situation where, hey, can you come out this weekend and do this gig, And Buddy would say yes. There's even a live album with George Jones that Buddy played on that was recorded in Texas. That's a really, really great live recording. And you just get the feeling like they're just calling songs and they're just jamming. It's just improv on the spot, and it's just kind of coming out, but it's just so spectacular. Live at Town Hall, I think it's called. Something like that. I'm bad with titles. I'm sorry, Otis. I really do.
In this age of
apologize.
Streaming, I've gotten even worse. Just to have an album in front of me telling me what it's called.
I love album notes. Didn't we live for liner notes? I remember Judy Collins' album was one of the first ones, Who Knows Where the Time Goes, that had liner notes. And so you could look on it and you could see that on Someday Soon that Stephen Stills is playing bass, that James Burton is playing guitar, and Buddy Emmons is playing pedal steel. And it's like, oh, who are these people? I want to know everything about them.